our spirits, yea, the spirits of all men of goodwill, are deeply troubled this day as we sit together in the quietness before God. The quietness that surrounds us is broken by the angry noises of the violent, the hard sounds from the bitter and agitated hearts that have ascended during this week that has passed in New Orleans. Our silence is broken by the mute, inarticulate bewilderment of three little girls who have no way by which in their little lives to handle so gross an expression of life. It is broken by the anguish of their mothers and their fathers, and in the quietness we bring them here with us, sitting by our sides, and we bring the angry criers of violence with us, sit them by our side as we wait in thy presence, O God. We have no words to say. Even our thoughts are paralyzed. Our hope shimmers and sometimes fades in the darkness. But thou hast taught us that thou art the God of the darkness and the light. And in the darkness we reach for thy sustaining hand. That strength and wisdom and hardness of mind can somehow be coupled with tenderness of heart. That thy spirit may walk again in the midst of thy children. Oh God, 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 leave us not. Leave us not, our Father. Be not afraid because the sun goes down. It brings the sunset and the plover's cry. Before the colors of the evening drown, the stars will make new colors in the sky. Night is no enemy. She passes by and shows us silence for our own heart's good. For while we sleep, the roses multiply, the little tree grows taller in the wood. Fear not the night, the morning follows soon. Each has his task to make the earth more fair. It is by these, by midnight and by noon, that she grows riper and her orchards bare. Her fields would wither in a sun too bright. They need the darkness too. Fear not the night. The topic may be misleading, for it is not quite the time in the journey that we are undertaking to examine for our enrichment together the suffering and evil as disciplines of the spirit, but I didn't know how else to find a peg to hang what I wanted to say on, so I used the subject that's indicated here, the evil and the good. I am continuing our thinking together about certain aspects of commitment. You know, the mind and the spirit too, I suppose, are very peculiar things. There comes a moment when you're sure that the insight that has broken, and you see very clearly what it is that you must say. And even as you find yourself saying it, you know that this isn't it. So if you think, those of you who may have a sufficiently extensive recall and who were here when we began working on commitment, if you think that that everything that I'm saying this morning, I said 4 weeks ago. Now, you may be right, but I don't think so. It is something eluded me, and it has worried my spirit and my mind, and so we will try again to get at this. Commitment is a dedication. It is the offering of whatever it is that one has to something which seems to the offerer to be so supremely wasteful that all that one has to give is not enough. Now, this sort of experience for the human spirit is possible, I think, because of the nature of life and the kind of vitality that life itself represents. As I have said over and over again, that life is alive, that this is a living, breathing, pulsing existence which is ours, and that the mind and the spirit of man can brood with concentration over the stubborn and unyielding and recalcitrant stuff of life until at last this stubborn, unyielding, recalcitrant stuff begins to shape itself as the objective manifestation of the thing that is held at dead center in the mind. This is the kind of world that guarantees that kind of experience. And there seems to be a mechanism, or that's not, a principle, I guess is a better word, that operates almost automatically. When I meet the conditions, the energy flows. When I am able to bring myself into focus around a single end, I find my life energized. And this seems to operate automatically. And I will hold that in mind as we pursue, because I'll come back to it at the end. Now, commitment does certain very important things for the life. It gives structure to the life. It gives order, not order in general. You see, there is in all life, in your life, in my life, a certain organic order, a certain behavior pattern that our organs follow, certain organic patterns that go to make up our individual lives. I don't mean order of this kind, but order that becomes capable of putting the inherent order in the life at the disposal of a new demand. This gives structure to the life. It gives meaning. It provides the individual with a riding sense of judgment with reference to anything that he does. The simplest thing. now is defined in terms of where his life is headed. Even his ethical values, his idea of right and his experience, rather, of right and wrong becomes meaningful to him in the light of the bearing that the deed has on what for him is the meaning that his life has. So, to state it in another way, commitment provides a basis of integrated action for the life, so that one does not have to refer externally to find out whether or not this is the bearing that I should take or that is the bearing, but the thing that determines which way you go is the hard core of purpose around which your particular life is organized. This defines your goal. This even determines what you mean by right and wrong. This sits in judgment on how you spend your time, what is wasted time and what is not wasted time. Now, the second thing that commitment does is to inspire or to encourage. Well, inspire is a better word. It inspires a willingness to give up anything that comes between you and the central devotion. Anything that blocks the way. More and more I am under the necessity to remove it. Now, the thing that blocks the way may be a good thing in itself. It may be very useful, very wonderful, but in terms of what my life means, this thing is a deterrent. So that all the time, you see, I pass a judgment upon the things in my life in terms not merely of what they are in and of themselves, but what do they do to me in terms of making it possible more and more or less and less for me to make a complete and fundamental and utter surrender of all of my life to that to which I am committed. So the Master says, if your arm does this thing, cut it off. If your eye does it, pluck it out. So that's very extreme language. So let us not say, well, since I know he doesn't mean that literally, so let's not waste any time on that detail. But what he does say, you see, is precisely this, that only I can tell whether or not this very precious thing that I have is slowly, quietly pulling me away, so that more and more the meaning of my life becomes less and less and less and less. It inspires a willingness to surrender, to sacrifice anything, and even under certain circumstances to sacrifice one's life. And this is the thing that finally the martyr faces. It is better to say yes to that imperious pull that holds in its hands the creative synthesis of all the meaning that I can garner out of living. It is better to say yes to that than to go on living because I'm afraid to die. And there isn't anything dramatic about this. It is just the quivering response of the life of a man. Simply this and nothing more. But there's a third thing. The commitment, and this is the part that may not still be clear. Commitment insists that all life, all people must be divided into two groups, the committed and the uncommitted, with nothing in between. The committed, the uncommitted. And the functional significance of the committed is to see that more and more the number of the uncommitted will be less and less. So an attack is made by the committed upon all whose minds have not been made up or all who are not already in the way. This is the genius of the missionary impulse. This is why you want to get as many people to think as you think about things, and if they don't think as you think, there's something that may be just a little off about what they think. Not terribly off, but they'll see the light is the phrase we use. And when they see the light, what does that mean? They will see the light that I see. Now, why is this necessary for the committed? Because, and this is the thing that I think I see. Because one of the problems that the committed individual faces, suppose I'm wrong. What if, after all, the discipline of my life, I have placed everything upon this altar and find that the God of the altar is dead, 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 dead. How can I protect myself from self-deception? This is the heart of the problem. So a part of the meaning of trying to enlist other people in your commitment is the almost unconscious activity of the human spirit to try to guarantee itself against error in its own commitment. Now, one more little step. The commitment may be to something that is evil. It may be to something that is against life. And the searching problem is this. Does the same principle hold to the man who is committed to an undertaking that is diabolical in its fulfillment and significance, that holds for the man who is dedicated and committed to something that is good and creative and constructive? Is there any difference in the dynamics of the experience of commitment? This is the heart of the problem. I have two suggestions to make, and I'll make them in as many minutes if I can. The first is that in one sense, the fact that to which a person is dedicated or committed is good or evil is beside the point. Now, you may not think so. The simple, crude illustration is that if I planted healthy strawberry seeds and the soil is right, the conditions are met, growth will follow automatically. And that's wonderful because strawberries are good to eat and they do wonderful things to the palate. Now, if I planted poison ivy seeds that are healthy and the conditions for growth are met, the poison ivy seeds will grow. Now, the fact that poison ivy gives me a rash and a temperature and under certain circumstances may even short-circuit my life is beside the point. Now, there's this element at work here. But as a religious man, I am convinced, you see, that ultimately this is the kind of universe that does not sustain the evil enterprise. But there is a time interval, a considerable time interval, when the evil enterprise and the good enterprise, as far as the dynamics of the experience of commitment are concerned, you cannot tell the difference between them. But there's something very subtle about goodness, and this I do not understand. And it is that there's something about goodness that seems to lull people into less strenuous activity. I don't quite know how to say this, but for instance, a person who is dedicated to something that's against life organizes, puts all of his energy at it, will not permit any deflections. If you sign up, you have it. And if you don't carry through, then you are, well, you liquidated or something like that. But there's something about goodness, and I don't understand this. Something about goodness that seems to give you a feeling that goodness will somehow good its way through the world. Just good its way. You don't have to have any brains. You don't have to have any resources. All you have to do is to have a good heart. and you can rent out everything else that you have. Now, the man who has been on evil knows that he must lay a mortgage on everything that he has. There are two great majorities: those who are dead and the great host that remains yet to be born. We are a thin minority who live, and we must carry the torch of God unanimously, because we are a thin minority. Our words are even more feeble than our thoughts. Our thoughts are weaker than our striving. Give to all of us the great redemptive benediction of thy Spirit as we separate one from another. Our Father,